Elias Turner had never been a man of wealth, but he carried a richness and spirit that no gold mine could rival. His ranch sat alone on the dry outskirts of Santa Fe's forgotten plains, a patch of land so worn by wind and drought that even the crows didn't bother circling overhead. His horses were thin, his roof leaked when it rained, and his pantry often held more memories than food. But Elias lived by a simple creed. A man's worth ain't measured by what he owns, but by what he gives when he has nothing left. And though life treated him harshly, it never hardened him. One late evening, while the sun hung low like a dying coal in the desert sky, Elias stepped outside to fetch water. That's when he saw a figure stumble from the sagebrush, shadows and collapse near the barn. It was a young Apache warrior, barely more than a boy, with an arrow lodged in his shoulder in dust. Caked to his cracked lips, Elias froze. Helping alone. Apache in those days wasn't just dangerous, it was often a death sentence. But something in the boy's eyes, filled with fear and pain, made Elias step forward instead of back. "Easy, son," he whispered, kneeling beside him. "Ain't nobody dying on my porch tonight." He carried the boy inside, despite knowing well that anyone who found out would call him insane. He boiled water, stitched the wound, and fed him the last slice of bread he had, something he had planned to stretch through 3 days. The wounded Apache said nothing at first, only watching Elias with guarded eyes, unsure whether the man was a rare friend or a fool who didn't understand the consequences of this kindness. But when dawn bled into the sky, the boy finally spoke his name, Taza. "You helped me," he murmured in halting English, "when you could have left me to the wolves." Elias shrugged. "A life's a life." For 2 days, Taza stayed hidden in Elias's cabin, recovering. Elias said nothing to the sheriff, nothing to the townsfolk, and nothing even when he noticed unfamiliar footprints around his ranch at night. Apache scouts watching over their wounded brother. On the 3rd night, Taza stood and bowed his head. "My people will know your kindness." Before Elias could respond, Taza disappeared into the darkness like a whisper carried by the wind. Elias thought that was the end of it. Life returned to its quiet misery. The squeal of the windmill, the groaning barn doors, the tired rhythm of tending to land that never thanked him. But something had changed in him. The loneliness felt heavier, and the silence carried a strange expectation, as if the desert itself was holding its breath. A week later, rumors drifted into town like wildfire. Apache war parties moving near the borders, caravans vanishing, settlers fleeing their homes. Tension thickened the air. People pointed fingers at every shadow, every rider, every stranger. For the first time, Elias wondered if his act of kindness had placed a target on his back. By the 12th night, he barely slept. By the 13th, he didn't sleep at all. And on the 14th morning, just as the sky turned pale with dawn, he stepped onto his porch and saw something that turned his blood cold. A sea of riders. Hundreds, no, thousands of Apache warriors sat on horseback, spread across his land like an ocean of feathers, leather, and steel. Their faces were grim. Their horses stomped the earth. Spears pointed toward the sky like a forest of sharpened trees. Elias felt the world tilt under his feet. His kindness had returned to him, but he didn't know whether it was salvation or judgment. Elias didn't move. His breath caught like a stone in his throat as the ground trembled under the weight of 1,000 hooves. He could hear the snorts of the horses, the rustle of feathered headdresses, the soft chanting carried by the morning wind. Every Apache warrior in sight sat perfectly still, staring at the poor rancher who had nothing but courage in his pockets. Then the sea of riders parted in the middle, creating a long path leading straight to Elias's porch. 3 Apaches rode forward, older, imposing, warriors whose presence felt carved from the canyon walls themselves. But it was the 4th figure that made Elias exhale in disbelief. Taza, alive, fully healed, dressed in the armor and feathers of a warrior of rank. He dismounted with the grace of a hawk landing on stone and walked toward Elias with calm confidence. "You saved my life," Taza said, his voice firm now, his English clearer. "Today my people repay that debt," Elias swallowed. "Taza, I didn't help you for payment." The older Apache stepped forward, clearly, the chief, and raised his hand. When he spoke, his words carried centuries of weight. "A man who gives without expecting return," the chief said, "is a man blessed by the Great Spirit. We honor such a heart." He gestured behind him. The 1,000 riders straightened their backs. "We have guarded your ranch these past 14 nights," the chief continued. "Enemies came, but none crossed your borders." Elias blinked. "Enemies?" "Outlaws," Taza answered. "Men who hunt Apache. Men who burn ranches. They planned to take yours, but we stopped them." The realization struck Elias like lightning. All those nights he felt watched. All those shadows he dismissed as paranoia. It had been protection. Taza looked toward the horizon. "My people do not forget acts of mercy. You saved a warrior. That means you saved a son of our tribe. So today we bring you a gift." At the chief's signal, several riders dismounted and pulled open large leather sacks. Elias nearly collapsed when he saw what spilled out: food, grain, dried meat, blankets, medicine, and tools. Supplies worth more than Elias could earn in 3 years. I can't take this," Elias whispered. The chief placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "When a man gives life, he earns life." Then the warriors performed something Elias would remember until his final breath. 1,000 spears lifted toward the sky. 1,000 voices rose in a thunderous chant, a blessing spoken only for allies of the Apache. The ground hummed with the power of it. The sun broke over the horizon, casting golden fire over the sea of warriors, making them look like spirits rising from the earth. Elias felt tears burn in his eyes. Never in his life had he been honored, not by townsfolk, not by friends, not even by fate. But on this morning, the poorest man in the West was treated like a leader worthy of a nation. When the chant ended, Taza stepped closer. "The world is changing," he said softly. "But remember this: kindness plants seeds the desert cannot kill." With that, the Apache nation turned their horses. In a wave of dust and sunlight, they rode away, leaving Elias alone with a mountain of supplies, a full heart, and a story no one in town would ever believe, yet one he would never forget. As the last rider disappeared over the hills, Elias whispered into the wind, "Guess I wasn't so alone after all." And somewhere in the distance, carried by the morning breeze, he thought he heard a familiar voice reply, "No man who shows mercy is ever alone.